everyone, my name is Joshua T. Berglan, host of Unmasking Humanity. And before we get into this amazing interview with Sangeeta, I want to give a shout out to a couple of our sponsors. One, FlexBuy. They've been around since 2014, providing financing to small, medium, and large size businesses. But where they really specialize is if you're a coach or a consultant or even a teacher and you have clients that may not necessarily have access to the cash to pay for your services. This financing program they're easy to work with. It's way better than working with, a traditional bank or even most of your other lenders. This organization, FlexBuy, works with some of the biggest names in coaching and consulting all over the country, maybe even the world. I'm not sure about that part, but they're incredible to work with. The owner is incredible. Their team is great. We've only been working with them for a little bit now, but we're getting ready to add their service to the World's Mayor Experience platform. So check them out. The link is in the comment section here and the blog, wherever you're actually seeing this video, because we're all over the place. But check them out. It doesn't hurt you anything to check them out. But again, if you're a coach or a consultant and you're offering these services, you know how hard it is to say, when somebody doesn't have cash, they don't have access to that capital, you have to turn away a lot of business. But this can help you bring in customers. But also, if you're someone that is looking to hire a coach or a consultant, this is a good option for you to tap into as well. Super easy to work with, straight up and honest. My experience with them so far has been incredible. So check them out at flexbuy.com. You can find my link there to make this process easier for you in the comments. And also want to give a shout out to Wild Warrior Nutrition. I am a huge fan of this brand. I'm actually taking a couple of their products now. Bull testicle product, not kidding, it's something extraordinary. I thought it was really interesting when I got this product. I'm like, well, I don't know if I want to keep this on my shelf to show off, but I must say, grass-fed bull testicle is a mind-blowing product for invigoration like I have not taken before. And of course, I'm coupling it with the pine pollen, which is nature's greatest superfood, best superfood. And I don't know how you quantify that necessarily, most powerful superfood. But one of the best things about this brand across the board with all of their products, there's not a bunch of extra fillers, no nonsense products, or not nonsense other ingredients included in the formulation. You just get the pure raw quality of the product, not stepped on, not cut up, not mixed with other ingredients. It's clean, it's great. Frankly, my body, the very first day of taking both products, could feel them. I got them on different days. But, I kind of like the instant gratification effect of products I take. And, that doesn't always work out that way. The bull testicle product and even the pine pollen is just extraordinary. Definitely got to check them out. The pricing, they always have sales. They always have discounts. You got to check them out. But check out the link in the comments. It's going to lead you to one of my videos that's talking about it. But in that link, you'll be able to save some money purchasing their products. It's absolutely incredible. Anyway, without further ado, get ready for Unmasking Humanity. Strap in. It's wild. This is the most different Unmasking Humanity I've ever been a part of, and it's a lot of fun. And there's some very tense moments, or at least moments you're going, oh my gosh. But it's just so much fun. It's a little over an hour, but it's worth it. Check it out. Thank you for being here. Again, my name is Joshua T. Berglan, and I'm very, very blessed to have you here. Thank you. Welcome to Unmasking Humanity, 21 Questions with Joshua T. Berglan. I'm your host, Joshua T. Berglan, founder of the World's Mayor Experience platform, which you can dive into at joshuatberglan.com. And I'm also the visionary behind the Bridge Media Empowerment Centers. I'm an international best-selling author, an award-winning producer, and a relentless advocate for digital and media literacy. My passion, crafting solutions that uplift underserved communities around the globe through the Bridge Media Empowerment Centers, because empowerment isn't just a word, it's a movement. This show is all about peeling back the layers, asking the tough, fun, and thought-provoking questions that reveal the heart and soul of our guest. Today, we are in for a treat, a high-energy, no-holds-barred conversation with a true global game changer. Get ready for 21 questions that will challenge, inspire, and unmask the brilliance of our incredible guest. Buckle up. This is going to be one wild, unforgettable ride. Joining me today is Sangeeta Waldron, a multi-award winning communications powerhouse, published author, and a force to be reckoned with in the world of climate change, sustainability, and corporate social responsibility. Trained as a climate reality leader by none other than Al Gore, Sangeeta brings a razor-sharp expertise to the table. She's the founder of Serendipity PR and Media, a regular international speaker, and a mastermind who's penned speeches for government ministers while collaborating with top-tier global brands and charities. Her latest book, What Will Your Legacy Be? Conversations with Global Game Changers about the climate crisis, dropped on January 30th. 2025, and it's already in reprint after making waves at Davos 2025. She's also the author of the shortlisted Corporate Social Responsibility is Not Public Relations and the PR Knowledge Book. Oh, and did I mention she's an advisory board? She's on the advisory board for Bridge India, an award-winning think tank shaking up the public policy. Sangeeta is here and she's ready to tackle 21 questions that'll unmask her brilliance. Let's get started. Sangeeta, welcome to Unmasking Humanity. How are you?
I'm great. I'm buckled up.
I am too. I am so honored to have you here. I'm excited about these questions because, admittedly, I don't necessarily go with where all the public attention goes. I'm more defiant than that. I don't believe what I'm told. I ask a lot of questions and I'm very, very curious. However, there's a lot of alignment that we have in our belief system and also the heart that we have for humanity. But some of those things that we're going to dive into today are controversial and somewhat polarizing because there's very, very strong opinions around what your expertise is. Heck, there's strong opinions about the people that even attend Davos. That said, there's also a lot of misconceptions, and I'm honored to have you here because I think you're the perfect person to answer these questions and also be able to provide the information with no agenda and just truth. So I'm honored to have you here.
Thank you, Josh. I'm so thrilled to be here, and you're absolutely right. There is no agenda. It's about truth to power, and I will be speaking my truth today.
Excellent. That is very, very welcome here. It's very welcome because I like to get past the propaganda and just get to the root of the truth. So this is going to be awesome. Now, that said, before we get into your 21 questions, can I ask, what are you grateful for today and why?
Wow. I mean, I am grateful for so much today. So I'm based in the UK. And last night I had the book launch for my book that came out on the 30th of January. And it was in a very magical chapel. It's a place called the Fitzrovia Chapel. And it's a place where the king did his Christmas speech recently. So, I mean, I this morning, I'm just overcome with everything. It was a brilliant, magical event. I'm so grateful for everyone who came out, supported me. The chapel has a capacity of 80. We had 80 in the room and we sold out of books.
Wow.
So I am hugely grateful.
Oh, that's so cool. And I want to actually step back really quick and say something about you. I get to meet a lot of different people about broadcasting and how we met that through that connection channel. So I deal with people's PR agencies and I deal with representatives and managers and even leaders themselves sometimes. And one of the things that I've noticed after doing broadcasts for several years now, almost over 700 broadcasts, you pick up on things and like how people are and their way of being. I have to say, you're probably one of the most powerful, for lack of better words that I can think of right now, human that I've ever met that also expressed such gratitude. And you were so gracious to work with in the lead up to this. You were simple to work with, easy, everything I asked for ahead of time. You gave me with no problem. You were grateful. You were all the things leading up to this that made me sincerely excited to connect with you because I just knew that you were the real deal as far as being a sincere, genuine person. And a lot of people that I've met in your position, it's not always that way and it's relatively disappointing. But you and your way of being was really just awesome and sincere and made me very, very excited for this. So I want to thank you and acknowledge you for that because it's very uncommon nowadays.
Wow, you know what? I've got tears. Thank you so much. That means a lot. And working in PR, working within the media, you come across lots of kinds of different kinds of people, especially in organizations. And you do come across egos. And I always try to treat people like I would want to be treated. And I think we always remember good, kind people. We want to work with good, kind people. So that is my mantra
I love it.
always.
Are you ready for your 21 questions?
Yep, I'm
All
ready.
right, let's
Let's go.
do it. You've been trained by Al Gore as a climate reality leader. What's the wildest thing you learned from him that still keeps you up at night?
That right now in the world, there are very few global leaders who want to lead on climate change. And it was a privilege last year in 2024 to be in Rome and to be trained with other individuals from around the world by Al Gore. It was moving. And I mean, we need that kind of leadership right now. It's lacking. We need humanitarians in the world right now. That's lacking. So I'm grateful that there are people like Al Gore using their voice to stand up and speak their truth.
Can I want to ask something, and this is not part of the 21 questions, but when I came up with this question, I knew that I was going to probably have a follow-up question that wasn't planned. But I wanted to wait to hear what your answer was. The one thing that has bothered me about the climate change debate, there's no doubt that there's climate change. Now, whether it's intentional and purposeful, I don't know. Because I mean, I see beautiful, beautiful days outside, and then all of a sudden I see planes flying around with magical white stuff flying out of the back engine and then all of a sudden the skies are cloudy and then 2 days later there's tornadoes all day long or there's like I see a lot of stuff that I can't get answers to and I'm looking at I'm like why does no one else look at the sky and say why are these planes spraying white stuff and why all of a sudden on a clear day is it cloudy and then a day later there's something crazy that happens like a weather event or a natural disaster or something else like those kind of things ruffle my feathers a little bit because I can't find the answer. And the second part is a lot of the predictions about climate change, as far as what would happen from Al Gore specifically, didn't happen. And so it's hard to know what to trust because we have so many agendas forced down our throat by well funded. I mean, the media, is more than anybody how powerful the media is. Yet at the same time, there's so much distrust because of so much we've been told was absolute BS. And every day we find out something new that's BS. How can we trust this push for climate change awareness and doing something about it? How can we trust that this is a sincere movement and not just another thing to take more control and more freedom from people?
Well, let me answer that. I mean, I'm not sure which parts of Al Gore you're referring to that haven't happened, but I will answer this
Yeah.
from my perspective. Climate change is real. Of course, people don't know me, but I have been working in this field for a very long time.
Yeah.
I had the privilege of living my teenage years in India in the lower ranges of the Himalayas. I saw man-made climate change happen.
Yeah.
I saw forests burning, not because somebody lit a match, but because it was so hot. And that I'm talking about those experiences maybe 30 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
Climate change was happening in what we call the developing world. I also want to say this. When you go to countries like India and Africa, the small island states like Barbados, the Maldives, these places, and you speak to those local people, they believe in climate change because they're at the forefront.
Yeah.
They don't say we're not sure. They know it's happening. So when you speak to ordinary, everyday people, people who own shops, people who are teachers, mums, whoever, they say climate change is real.
Yeah.
Because they're experiencing it. So I'm giving you that from a very humane perspective. And for my book, I interviewed 36 people from around the world, all very different people.
Mm-hmm.
And I interviewed a young woman working in Nepal with Nepalese farmers. What's interesting is all these farmers are women because all the men have gone to the city to make money. All these women are not very educated. So they can probably read, write their names, but they're not worldly literate. But they said to this young woman who was working with them, we know something is happening. The climate has changed. We don't know what, they didn't know the term climate crisis or climate change, but they know the weather has changed because it's changed their crop production. They have landslides when they never used to have landslides. They have intense heat when they never had intense heat. So they know. So I'm giving you that perspective from a very real grassroots level.
Sure.
And if we look at indigenous communities who are around the world, we look at the indigenous communities based in the Amazon, they don't call it maybe climate crisis or climate change, but they say nature is angry because man has disturbed the ecosystem. And that's a fact.
I do agree with that.
And the other thing is if we take it back to maybe advanced economies where we have fossil fuels, which is in the aeroplanes, which is in our cars, which we need, right? No one is saying to live in darkness. No one is saying we shouldn't travel. The world is not perfect in that way, and nobody wants to stop traveling. But it's the choices we make. It's the things we do, how we decide to shop, where we spend our money, who we vote for, what we read. These are all important choices. And these are all part right now of the legacy we want to leave behind. So I hope that answers it in some way. And one last thing I'll say is on Monday this week, which I can't remember what date it was, it might have been the 18th, 19th of February, I was at a conference. And one of our leading scientists called Sir David King was giving a lecture about the climate crisis and how the temperature has increased. And science has proven that. NASA has proven that the temperature has risen. And when the temperature rises, it has an impact, not just on land, but on sea. And all these things are connected. And if you remember during the pandemic, when the whole world came to a standstill, everything was different. If you looked out your window, you didn't see so many planes flying. Things were just better for us. And it gave us a glimpse into the kind of world we can have if we choose to make better choices.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you just said at all. And I also agree that it is man-made. I also think that there's a thing called weather warfare that's very real because our governments have the power to use the weather or manipulate weather as a war weapon. I mean, that's been around forever. I mean, they said they got rid of it, but that's not really true. And so I guess my question, you answered the question amazingly. and honestly, and I agree with everything you said. The part that I often question is how much of this is being done intentionally, because there's a lot of, when you there's a it for people that love freedom, and I'm politically agnostic. I personally don't like any of them. I'm not a fan, in America especially. I'm not a fan of the options that we've had.
Mm.
And it's just the way that I see the world. And I don't want to get stuck on this conversation, but the reason I brought it up is because there is man-made activities that only governments have the power to be able to do, that have to be a part of this climate change problem that we have. Now, some people say that's conspiracy talk, but I'm also not, whatever. But most of the conspiracies that I've learned over the last 5, 6 years have all turned out to be true. So they've got that issue. But then I could again look up in the sky going, not all planes have white stuff flying out of them on clear days. Like, not that's it's not just the plane. They're doing something specifically there. I don't know what that is, but I do know, because I pay attention to these things, what happens after the days of tons of spraying. There's always a tragic weather event. And so I think those questions have to be asked. And again, I want to move on after this, but that's
Yes.
why I asked that question, because that part, like if you have a government saying, oh, there's climate change, this is a problem, this is an epidemic, we need to do all these things, but they're the ones responsible for changing the weather, as human beings and as citizens, as global citizens, like, what are you supposed to do? Like, I mean, I think they're fair questions to ask. Are they not?
Yes, they are. And I don't have all the answers.
I
I
mean,
haven't, yeah, also, I haven't been tracking, I haven't done the research to notice as you have. But what I will say this, and this is something I have discovered in the last maybe 15, 20 years,
Mhm.
more I read, is fossil fuel industries. They are powerful.
Yes, very.
They are financing a lot of governments. A lot of people have won elections on fossil fuel money. Now, fossil fuels is a killer, right? It creates plastic. Plastic's not good for us.
Nope.
Plastic now in our bodies, it's creating change. Um, it's in the ocean, it's in the water. We're absorbing it. When we're out, we're absorbing it. It's everywhere. So that doesn't answer your question, I know, but the closest I can give you an answer is that I know the fossil fuel industry is insidious.
Yeah. I
And
Okay, sorry.
and sorry, when you have any kind of conference or event, there are more for pro planet conversations. Who wants to be in the room? Fossil fuel lobby groups. Why?
Of course they do.
Because self-interest. It's self-interest.
Yeah.
So that's probably the best I can answer that from my understanding.
This is why this is another reason I have so much respect for you, because I don't know if you can answer that question. I don't know if anyone can right now, because I think that's above our pay grade, so to speak. Um, but your answer was thoughtful, and I appreciate that, because it's a very challenging question, and I don't have the answer myself. But if I didn't ask, this is
Yeah.
like the one opportunity in my life I've had to ask somebody in your position, and I wanted to ask. So thank you for handling it, because I wasn't trying to like trick you or anything.
I
It was
know.
a sincere question, because
Yeah.
I don't know. It makes my head spin sometimes, but that's okay. Let's move on to the next question. But I want to commend you again for answering that the way that you did, because it was very thoughtful. And again, it's not an easy question to answer. So thank you.
No,
You ready for
thank
your
you.
next question?
I am.
Okay.
Well, really buckled up.
Oh, I'm not going to go down any more wormholes. Your latest book dropped bombshells at Davos 2025. By the way, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
What's one conversation with a global game changer that flipped your perspective upside down?
Oh my God, you're not. It's like asking me to choose my best child.
Don't do that. Don't do that. They may be listening.
Yeah. Um, They are all, and I sincerely mean this, every conversation was powerful. At the end of every conversation, I was grateful that I had time to spend with that person. But if I really had to choose one, and it kind of dips into what you just asked me, so it's probably a good one to talk about. I had the privilege to speak to a woman who is a humpback whale researcher.
Whoa.
And do you know these creatures are so magical? Nature has given them a purpose. They have a purpose for us
Yeah.
living here on land. And what these creatures do, they absorb the CO2 from the atmosphere. They absorb it for us and they take it down to the bottom of the ocean and they secrete it into pellets. That is one of their roles, right? Isn't that mind blowing?
Wow.
That's
Wow.
mind blowing. The thing is, we as humans, we're made up of water, 70% water. We're connected to the sea. But when we think about climate change, we only think about climate change on land, but it's happening in the sea. And now what's happening with humpback whales is it's becoming so warm, they're having something called marine heat waves, which is stagnating the water. So the humpback whales, they swim to cooler waters in different seasons. But because the water is now stagnant, they can't get there.
Oh.
And therefore, they can't do their job. And they are dying because they move seasons to feed on the fish. Also because of plastic.
Yeah.
Remember those nasty fossil fuels? A lot of plastic, well, plastic is made from petroleum. Whales are being caught up in fishermen's nets. So we have a decline of humpback whales, and therefore they can't do their job. And it also shows us how interlinked we all are on this planet. Mother Nature has thought of everything. Everything in this ecosystem understands its place, its role. Sadly, we as humans don't.
You're right about that. Oh, yeah. How many humans live in defiance of the purpose they were created for, yet animals do it naturally?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then because of our actions, we're screwing with that, ultimately screwing with ourselves. Oh, wow. All I could, for some reason, the phrase as above, so below is just coming in my mind. It's just, wow. That's really troubling to think about. That would keep me up at night because how many of us really think about the significance of the ocean and sea life? And the plastic pollution thing, I have a massive issue with. I've done several episodes about that and the effects and how the plastic is showing up in breast milk now and
Yeah.
poisoning us. And so that was such a fantastic answer. Thank you. Running serendipity PR and media, you've worked with massive brands. What's the most outrageous demand a client's ever made to you, and how did you handle it?
This was just before. Let me answer this one because it's a story that's always stayed with me. And it was before I set up my agency, and I was working for the first mayor of London called Ken Livingstone, and he organised every year in London a big. It was called Respect, and it was a big music festival bringing cultures, different genres of music together. And there was this one, and it was in a very big stadium, massive, and there was a band. I can't remember who they were, but they were a rap band. And where they were up a spiral staircase where their green room was, which they would come down to the stage, walk across to where they wanted to be. And when they got to the stage, just before they got onto stage, they said, "We won't get on unless we have something like weird, like green towels." It's like, oh my God, where are we going to get these sort of fancy towels from? But I remembered there was some in their green room. You've never seen me run so quickly, climb these stairs, run up, get these towels, get them down. And for me, that was just the most ludicrous. And I'll tell you one more, and I won't name the celebrity.
Please.
They wanted somebody to park their car. I don't drive.
Oh, man.
And none of my team were insured. So, car, so yes.
That reminds me of the time I was working private security for a media mogul. And I can't believe, I think the statute of limitations is up. I can share this, but I'm not licensed to carry and I don't want to be. I'm licensed or I didn't want to then and I don't want to now. I don't want that responsibility. But to guard him, I had to carry a gun and I was resistant. I tried to quit the job because I didn't want to do it. I didn't feel safe, but I had to. I ended up doing it because it was a lot of money. I mean, I got paid a lot of money to do it and I needed the money at the time. I'm like, this is so dumb. This is the dumbest decision I've ever made. But I wanted to keep that client happy. So I did it. Yeah, that's something I will never do again. Anyway, not exactly the same thing, but it was very uncomfortable. I don't think I'll be doing that again. Sustainability is your jam, right? But what's one eco-friendly habit that you preach, but you kind of struggle with following through with?
No, I try to. There's nothing I wouldn't say that I'm not doing.
Honorable?
Because otherwise, then that's no point me saying it, right?
Tell that to the preachers. Just kidding.
But there's one thing
Sorry.
I do, and I think it's a very easy, simple thing for us all to do if we're not doing it already. And that is when I brush my teeth in the morning, I don't let the tap run. That's it. It saves water. It saves your water bill as well.
Mhm.
But water, sadly, is becoming a precious commodity. And little things like that. In countries like India, that's what you do. You don't even think about it. That's what you do. You're brought up to do it that way. So yeah, that's my tip, and that's what I do every morning.
I think I agree with that 100%. And that and turning off the lights when you leave a room, that's another one. Um, I I I think one of the most important lessons that I've learned over the last 10 years is being a good steward, not just a good steward of what I'm blessed with, like as far as job or income wise or the blessings in my life, but also the blessing to live in this amazing planet, to have the opportunities that we have. It's a beautiful place. I mean, it's a beautiful world. I mean, there's some places that obviously could use some love and care. I'm not saying that because there's famine and all over the world, but we do have a beautiful planet with a beautiful ocean and mountains and all and like why wouldn't we want to take care of it? Why wouldn't we want to take care of the air we breathe and the water that we want to swim in instead of polluting it and treating it like it doesn't matter? And there's so much of that, like littering. Littering is just the biggest fu to the creator that I've ever seen in my life. Like, why would you do that? So I align with that, and I also love that you wouldn't talk about something that you don't practice yourself. That's actually kind of uncommon too, it seems. So thank you.
No, no, and you know what? I'm not perfect. I probably do other things that I shouldn't be doing, but the simple things I can do, and it's the little things that matter.
They add up.
And
They add
yeah,
up.
and what you've just said, what about being a good steward, that's your legacy. That's the legacy you're leaving. Legacy isn't something that we think about we shouldn't be thinking about it when we're 30, 40, 50, 60. It's got to be when we're much younger, soon as we can make our own choices.
Such a beautiful answer. I really like your heart. I like this. All right. You've written speeches. This is one of the coolest things to me that you've been able to do. You've done a lot of really cool things after diving into you, but this one to me is super neat. You've written speeches for government ministers. Spill the tea.
I
What's
can't
what's the trick to making a politician sound human?
make it simple
Oh,
and that was one of the things, make it simple for the politician. And sometimes politicians aren't always the brightest spark. So make it simple and give them lots of simple points to make.
Okay. So okay. I'm going to ask this question. This is not a gotcha question at all, but I'm curious about this. Why, like, you're writing speeches for politicians? They're not their words, but they're the ones saying it. They're the ones getting the praise or criticism for it, but they're not their words. But at the same time, in the same breath, that the president or the leader that's having the speech written for them, and they're saying these words and they're celebrated, how is the public to feel about those not actually being their words? It's a script. It's written for them to read. Like, how are we to feel about that? Because are they really being a good leader if they're talking about something that they didn't even write themselves? Can you explain that to the novice political
Yeah.
brain?
Not everyone's a good writer. Not everyone can write, but that politician might have a fantastic delivery.
Hmm.
They can make that speech come alive. They will make my words come alive because the way they deliver and the way they say it. So that's a skill I might not have or anyone else. You know, we're not all great writers, we're not all great filmmakers, but some people, that's their gift. And politicians, they have probably one thing. Well, I would say majority, they have charisma. They know how to walk into a room, light up that room. They are seen, and they know how to do that. And it's something that they nurture, or they some politicians who are career politicians are taught that. But if I think of Al Gore,
Mhm.
maybe not your favorite person, but
No, I have no issue with him.
he's got charisma. He's got, when you see him, you feel his humanity.
But it's someone else's words, though. Like, if I'm when we have a one world government, probably
Yeah,
I'm going to be the world's mayor. That's going to happen.
yeah.
And I was born to be the world's mayor. I really was. Anyway, that'll make more sense later. That said, no one's going to tell me what to say. Like,
No,
if I ran for that office and I get it, it's because of the initiatives that I brought forward. It's the solutions that I'm bringing forward. So why in the world would I let someone, like, I understand shaping and editing my speech, but they should be my words and my values. That's
yeah.
the part that I'm talking about. Is the speech you're writing, do you get with them and say, okay, tell me your ideas, and then from their ideas, then you write their speech? Like, how does that work?
It depends. It's a different process for different individuals, right? Some people, some politicians, love writing their own stuff. Love to write their own, and it's nonsense because it doesn't make sense. So that's when somebody like me comes in, right?
Right.
Break it down, because you're also talking to a mass audience.
Mhm.
So different people work in different ways. Different people have different styles. But I don't think there's anything wrong with a politician saying, help me write this. Also, politicians are not just dealing with one topic or one subject at one time. They're dealing with lots of issues, lots of challenges, trying to fix the world. If they're mayor of the world, they're trying to fix everything at the right time. They're not going to know everything really well. And then you have an expert come in who might be an expert on sustainability, like myself,
Mhm.
who can hone it down and say, well, this is some of the things that are not in your speech, but you should be making. These are important points. And you know what? It's teamwork. It
There you
is
go.
teamwork.
That's what I'm looking for right there. Because and the reason I ask you this question, this is not just my question. I didn't like just make this up. I see this in social media, the chats, because you see people reading from a script and it's like, well, how do I know you're not just being a paid stooge? Because I mean, I've been paid to read scripts, yeah, and do voiceover work. And I mean, it's a job, it's a career. And I can light up someone else's script. I did it for years before my head started bobbling the way it does. But my point is, like, I see other people that think this. And so again, I've never had the opportunity to ask that question. So I'm again grateful for the thoughtful answer you gave, because it's not necessarily the perspective that we've seen it through may not necessarily be right, or we're missing something. And I think you filled in that blank and you answered that beautifully. Thank you.
No, but I just also want to say this. When I was writing speeches, the world was a very different place. We didn't have social media. Today we have social media, which has changed everything. So we have more insight to what's going on, how people are delivering their speeches and what they're saying, and we can connect the dots faster and quicker.
Right.
So what I will say is, right now in this political climate that we are in globally, not everyone is writing their speeches and not everyone actually understands the issue. And you do have a lot of stooges, because lots of politicians are owned by others. So yeah, I'll just say that.
I'm hugging you now. Like, thank you. Thank you. You're being honest from your point of view and what you know and your knowledge. And again, I'm not here to dispute it, because I can feel the sincerity in your answers, and I appreciate it. And I don't know if these are inappropriate questions or not, but I do appreciate the thoughtfulness in what you're answering, because I'm sincerely curious, and I know other people are too. I know other people wonder that. So you're doing a great service here. Thank you. All right. Corporate social responsibility isn't PR. As your book says, what's the dumbest CSR stunt you've seen a company pull to look good?
Should we go with McDonald's?
Please.
McDonald's thought, let's bring out well, what did they do? They were trying to fix the straw issue. And they thought, let's create these paper straws, right?
Yeah.
And they created these paper straws, but then they couldn't biodegrade. That wasn't a sensible CSR. They were just creating a stunt. They hadn't put any thought into it. I think that's one. Oh gosh, there's so many. People saying, oh, this is a good one. Your t-shirt is $5. It's $5 for a reason. It's $5 because there's some child who's picked the cotton.
Oh,
not being paid. And it's not a good $5 t-shirt. So there's all these things. And then, how do we know? How can we make those choices? But it means we have to be informed. We have to know what we're buying, what we're doing. It's down to us. It's our responsibility.
Oh, I have to introduce you to Jessica, who has the Meet Miss Jess VR podcast. She is, one of her initiatives is sustainable fashion. And that subject, I mean, because child slavery, there's so many forms of slavery that people don't talk about or even don't know about. It's alarming, but people know there's debt slavery and there's the labor slavery, and of course what you were talking about, how those $5 t-shirts get made, or those, I mean, what's sad that you have shoes that cost $300 but they cost $5 to actually make, and they're using slave labor. That's disturbing to me. But I've had my eyes open to sustainable fashion because of Jessica, and I'm learning all of these amazing solutions, things that can be done with newspaper, like recycled newspaper, and like how they can be used to create yarn. Like I learned that yesterday, and I'm just blown away seeing some of the designs and the things that can be made. And it just takes it, that being a good steward, to another level that is so important and so inspiring. And I think it's fun too. Like it's fun to find creative ways to reuse things. This is not a planned question, but how can we get people excited about practicing sustainable habits? Like how can we inspire people, especially the people that are more, you're trying to take my freedoms away, and though, like that mentality, the people that don't want to change, like, well, I want to go back to the way things used to be, and they're totally forgetting all of what used to be. They only remember the good things that happened. They don't remember all the awful, god awful things that were happening at that time too. That's always forgotten. But how can we excite people about practicing sustainability when they may look at that and go, that's some hippie crap. I don't want anything to do with that. Like, how do we do that?
I'm going to answer that in a minute, but I just want to say, your friend Jessica.
Yeah.
We need more people like Jessica in the world because they are finding solutions to the problems we've created. And I applaud people like Jessica. We need more Jessicas in the world. First of all, I wanted to say that. And they're very clever.
I agree.
How do we, you know what? I think it really starts with mindset. The more we're connected with ourselves, the more we are conscious. So I would say to anyone, if you don't have a garden, that's fine. Go and sit in your park. Go for a walk. Just be connected to nature. And then imagine if you didn't have those trees, if you weren't able to walk out, if it was burning hot and you couldn't even get out your front door, what would you miss? And if you feel, yes, you'd miss the blue sky, you would miss hearing the wind in the trees, the rustle of the leaves, you know, being at the beach, the water on your feet, all those beautiful things that we take for granted. If you think you would miss those things, then just start to think then maybe how can you do things a little better?
That is so good.
We're not asking you to change the world, but just think about, you know, the little things you can do.
I love it. I love it. It's also a really fun activity. Like if your kids are complaining about being bored, one of the things that I've learned too is, and Jessica and her kids, we used to do this together a lot. Is practicing reusing things, like even finding stuff that's been left on the side of the road and learning a way to refurbish it and turn it into something beautiful, like engaging in that activity. We found that the kids really, really love that. And it was fun. And then they get addicted to it because it's like a game. It's like gamifying sustainability.
Yeah,
And it's a great family activity.
it is. And you know what? I believe we're at our spiritual best when we're creative. When we are creative, we are in our zone. We are focused. We are at peace with ourselves. You've got none of those thoughts in your head. You know, it's so creativity is so important.
The creator created us to create, and we live in a creator's economy. I think it's like the most magical time to be alive. All right. Beautiful answer. Thank you for that. 3 books in. What's the most unexpected thing you've learned about yourself as an author?
I've written nonfiction. I always thought I always wanted to write when I was young as a child. And the other thing, when I was probably, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7, my mother always knew I would write a book. She always used to tell me, one day you're going to write a book. And I always thought I'd write a fiction book. I'd write stories. I've always been a big romantic. I thought I'd write romance stories. So the biggest surprise to me is that I've written nonfiction.
Huh. You know what? I think the same thing for me. I really thought that I would probably be a fiction writer. Like my early interest with writing was writing all the crazy things that were in my head.
Yeah.
And then I ended up writing nonfiction books, which, but, that's interesting. I share that in common with you. Huh, very cool. Well,
Yeah.
are you gonna write a nonfiction book though? I mean, a fiction book at some point?
I would like to try. I would like to try. I would like to get some of those thoughts, weird, wild thoughts down on paper.
Of course, what happens when they end up being true? What happens when your fiction book turns
Yeah,
into a true book?
that's the thing. Then I think, oh no. Then everyone would know everything that's going on in my head. That's not a great brand story for me.
Yeah, I have so much to say on that, but I'm not gonna go there. Just from my own perspective, because yeah, anyway, wow. Bridge India. I can't This is another thing. So I have something called Bridge, which is the media empowerment centers we're building. So when I saw Bridge India, I was like, what? This is cool. All right. Bridge India is all about public, or I'm sorry, Bridge India is all about bold public policy. What's one policy you'd force every world leader to adopt tomorrow?
That is, what would I would ask every world leader to commit, because there's still time, to reducing our greenhouse temperature to 1.5, try and wheel it back, make big commitments.
That's it. Now, wasn't that supposed to happen? Isn't
It
that what the
didn't.
Green New Deal was supposed to be, and then it fell off the
Yeah,
wagon? Or what can
it
you?
fell off. Yeah, people self-interest again, lobby
Mhm.
groups, fossil fuel lobby groups. It didn't happen. They lobbied hard, got governments to change their minds. So it hasn't happened yet, and we need it to happen because the temperature is getting so warm and hot.
Mhm.
The polar caps are melting, and they're melting way too fast. And there has been research in, I can't remember the university, but it's an American university that has shown that the rate of these polar caps, that this ice is melting, it if because it's so quick now, we're not going to be able to manage it. And the melting of these polar caps will create tsunamis, where we'll find places in the world going underwater. So we need to really somehow manage our relationship with the temperature. And we need our governments to act faster. A lot of governments come in on manifestos. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. We vote for them. And then they haven't done that. I'm talking about green deals,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Green policy. And they don't do it because they think very short term. They think about the profit. They think about making money now. Yes, I understand that because they want to win the next election again. So they think only short term. And short term thinking is dangerous. Short term thinking doesn't suit the planet. And, I'll say this, Native Americans or people
Mhm.
from indigenous communities in America, they have a very powerful, I'd say, business strategy, which is when whatever decision they're making for their community, they think of not just whether the impact of them now, but what that means for 7 generation time, in 7 generations,
Mhm.
what it will mean for them. It's called seventh generation thinking. We need to include some of that thinking in our policies, in business strategies, in everything we're doing. So we're not just making decisions for today, we're making them for 7 generations, because that's what we should be thinking of. It's not just about what you and I need right now in this moment, how much water we need to drink, how much air we need to breathe. We need to be thinking about our future grandchildren.
It's just taking being a good steward to a new level. I often wonder, how I got into the form of media that I'm in, and I started studying when Agenda 2030 first came out in 2015. That's when I started reading it because I was seeing I didn't know what to think about it at that time in my life. I just saw the elements of Agenda 21 starting to take shape, and I'm like, oh, this is worth paying attention to. And what I studied with reading the World Economic Forum and the United Nations plan, and even the Rockefeller Foundation report that came out a couple of years before that about the future world that we were going into. That's how I essentially learned everything I learned to come up with the system that I came for underserved communities. It's all started there. And one of the things that in this study, and just kind of really paying attention to what world leaders say, not even my local governments, because I don't like none of what they say ever happens. But when you listen to what comes out of the World Economic Forum and the United Nations, those are the things that all happen. So when they all get together, I watch. My point in this is it's really, really hard to know who to trust. We all, I think, as humans, we want to to have a leader, even though I think we should all look within to be our own leader, and step up and be an example to others and lead by example. That said, we live in a world with disinformation. It's very hard to know who to trust. There's so much fraud and waste in the American government that's being exposed more and more every day, and it's being exposed by technology, essentially AI. And it's hard for my brain to see this happening because, again, I used to think as this technocratic style government, I used to think of it as a bad thing and it was going to enslave people and the one world government. Oh, this is scary. But the way things have gone, the way the world has been run, and the year after year, or every election, every 4 years in America, it's like the same crap, same promises, nothing happens. This is the first election that things are actually happening the way that the elected president said they would happen, because he's doing all of those things, for better or worse, whatever people believe. He's actually doing the things that he promised. But it's technology that's playing the biggest role. So my question is, not planned, do you think we're better off with having an AI, decentralized AI, or AI run government? Like, are we better off as humans as letting AI have more power in the decisions that are made for the globe?
No,
Explain that, please.
we are creative beings.
Yes.
We need to occupy our minds. You know, our minds need to be occupied. What happens if we give all that control away? What will we be doing? We'll become zombies. We'll lose our sense of self. We'll lose, I believe, this is my personal view,
Yeah.
we will lose our connection with nature. We will be entrapped, we'll be enslaved. We won't be able to make the money that we think we can make because AI will be doing it for us. AI is already doing it for us. AI is making us lazy. You know, Jessica, who is clever and is creating all these things. Imagine if we didn't have Jessica, but we replaced her with a robot or an AI information system that comes up. Yes, we could work in partnership, but do we want to give all that away?
No. No, I don't think so.
And
I don't think so at all. But how do we stop the
we can't,
fraud from the
we
leader? So we have to live with it as humans? Like,
no,
what's the
no,
solution?
we can't. I mean, we've gone down this path now, so we're not gonna reverse, are we? We're not gonna wheel it in. But what we can do is think about our futures and what we want and how we want to shape our world. I do think we should have more say, and that means being more informed. Know what you're reading. Where are you reading it from? And part of this, I really believe in the power of communities. We all belong to some kind of community, whether it's our family, it's our church, it's our school. We're a part of some community. Be involved in your local community. Your local community is so powerful. And I'll say this, it's no longer top down, it's bottom up. And some of the biggest movements and the biggest changes in the world have come from people just collaborating, working together. And the women's suffragette movement was women working together, protesting together, coming together to create change. Gandhi in India liberated a whole country. India's a vast, huge country. He did that through peaceful protest. And he did that through communities. He didn't have social media at those days. You know, he wasn't busy texting or WhatsApping or, you know,
You know,
it,
TikTok.
it was through the power of his truth,
Right.
right? And what he spoke and what he did. So I think be engaged with your local communities, create within your local communities. That is powerful. And that will help us find how we want to live with AI. Because AI is also a huge energy consumer. It takes a lot of energy. Where are these big power banks going to be? How are they going to be run? Are they going to take all the energies that, everything that's needed? And therefore, how do we live? These are lots of questions we don't have all the answers for, but these are things we should be thinking about.
It's so interesting to hear you answer the question that way, because it almost, like, it's very clear that you think for yourself, because what you just said is not necessarily in line with the way that the World Economic Forum initiatives are going and what the leaders are saying there. You clearly have. What I appreciate about you is that you're not going along with the main talking points of these organizations that you've been able to speak at and represent. Like, you've truly done your own research, you have your own education, and you have your own mind and your own thoughts. I appreciate that, and I agree with you. I mean, I'm pro human. I'm also pro collaborating with AI as a tool, because it's an amazing tool. But at the same time, it is going to get to a point where we lose complete control over it. And then, the movies we grew up watching in
Yeah,
the theater are now going to be real. So
yeah,
that's part of it. I love your answer. And I also love how honest you were when I said, well, the governments have been corrupt. What are we going to do? And that answer was even, like, on point. And it is up to us. Like, we do, like, I think we forget as humans how powerful we are. But if we're fighting each other and arguing and disagreeing about everything and just focused on why we're different instead of what makes us unique and special, and instead of celebrating each other's success and celebrating the uniqueness of each other, like, we're at each other's throat. And I mean, there's a lot of reasons or opinions of why that is, but it doesn't matter. If we spent less time fighting and instead found ways to collaborate, we wouldn't have the feeling of lost control. We would feel more in control if we found a way to unite and started rebuilding our communities. My personal mission with what we're doing with the Bridge Media Empowerment Centers, the whole, like, I can talk about the economic development plan, I could talk about all those things, but at the heart of it, it's to bring communities back together. It's to
mm,
heal communities, which will thus heal families and bring families back together. And family can be whatever it is for you. It doesn't
yeah,
need to be what has been traditional. I don't necessarily align with that, but family is family, and you know family when you have family. And there's nothing better than having family togetherness, family connection, and community connection. And if that's the core and the heart, because if you can change your communities and build collaborative communities, then you can build a collaborative world. And I want to live in that world. I'm tired of war. I'm tired of seeing people suffer. I'm tired of seeing people being taken advantage of. And I'm tired. And I love what you said about the system where it used to be the top down. Like, all the people down here were to lift up this person. In our model and what we're doing, we flip that upside down too. So we're in alignment there. I want to see people brought back together, and I want to see us celebrate each other as unique creators with our own unique gifts and life experience. Celebrate that, learn from each other. Differences are good, and collaborate around that and create magic, create something beautiful. Anyway, done preaching.
100%. We come from communities. We are social. Aristotle famously said, didn't he? I mean, it's one of the first philosophers who said, we are social animals.
Mm,
And we are. And we work better. We used to hunt in groups and packs, you know. We should still be embracing our communities. We should be investing in our communities. Our communities are our future. They're our children.
mm.
It takes a village to raise a child,
Amen.
and that's true. I 100% believe that. And I'm working very actively in my local community, and I'm amazed by all the little things I see, and they all do make a difference. I'm not saying it makes the whole area different, but they make small improvements in small neighborhoods. And all these little drops, when you connect them together, it'll create a tsunami of change. I do believe that.
I love it. I love it. Your work spans charities and mega brands. Tell us about a time you had to say no to a big paycheck because it didn't align with your values.
Yeah, so there've been a few. um let me just have a little think. So there was I was asked to work on a project where it was in another country. They were they worked in the oil industry, and I just felt that wasn't right for me. Also, I work a lot with publishing houses and books, and there was one author's book that didn't feel aligned with my values. I felt it was it wasn't bringing communities together. It was setting people against each other. So yeah, so I didn't feel that was right for me. But it would have been right for somebody else, maybe. Yeah, and I mean, I'm not a good businesswoman because I say no to a lot of things. But
Makes you a
um,
good human, though.
yeah, but then I just feel I will sleep better at night, and
I
it's
think
more in line with my purpose.
there you go. There you go. That's the magic word right there. I like that a lot, and I think the new world is set up beautifully for you because it's designed for people living purposefully. I mean, really, this world is too, but I think it's going to be more inviting uh, for personalities like yours and mine. I mean, not that you haven't done amazingly well in this world. I'm just saying that that attitude and that way of being, I think, is going to flourish. And plus, you've set the example. You're a forerunner of sorts. That not of sorts. You are a forerunner, and you're paving the way for a new generation of people to follow. And it's a beautiful thing. So, I love leaders like you. Now, what's the most jaw-dropping statistic you've uncovered about sustainability that you wish everyone knew?
In 2015, the UN brought out a report saying there were more people in the world with a mobile phone than access to a clean toilet.
Yeah,
End of.
that is
Insane.
wow. So that means that and that probably means clean water too, then, right?
Yeah, clean water, all those. Yeah.
That's that in itself. Like we could drop one less bomb and give some people some toilets.
Mm.
God, I'm so tired of war. Like, it makes me sick. Anyway, you've moderated some intense international panels. No wonder you can handle my questions. What's the trick to shut? I forgot I asked this question. I feel like it's aimed at me now. What you've moderated some intense international panels. What's the trick to shutting down a loudmouth without losing your cool?
To thank them, and then thank them for what they've just said and move on. Just say, sorry, there's no more time. I'd like to hear from the next person.
Oh, well, you didn't do that to me. Thank you.
Well, there's only you and me here.
Oh, good point. Oh,
We'd be in silence.
that's too funny.
No, it's a pleasure talking. I love our conversation.
Oh, I'm having so much fun. Oh, mercy. If you could swap lives with one of your legacy game changers for a day, who would it be and why?
Oh, the humpback whale researcher,
Oh,
for sure.
that's a good
I
one.
don't- but I don't even have I don't travel well on boats, so I don't know how I'm going to do that. But I would do it somehow. I would just suck it up and do it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Such a good answer. Your first book was the PR knowledge book. What's the sneakiest PR tactic you've seen that actually worked?
The sneakiest PR tactic that's actually worked. Oh, I think it's not about sneaky. It's not about sneaky. I think it's about what I have seen that works always 100% is when you do PR with your heart.
Mm,
That is it. When you do honest PR, it works for you.
that was kind of a trick question. Not really. I freaking gosh, I love your answers. Wow, you are like you're handling these questions better than any guest I've ever had on Unmasking Humanity. It's amazing. But I've never and I don't have intentional curveballs, but then I did feel led to ask questions that could have like derailed the whole conversation. And I just have so much respect for you. I can't say it enough because, I mean, I've had people that are unqualified to answer questions get really upset for asking questions like that. So I again, so much respect for you. Sustainable, ugh, I can't talk today. Sustainability leaders at Davos loved your book. What's one question you asked there that left them speechless?
No, so let me just clarify. My book went to Davos.
Oh,
I didn't go to Davos. But what I will say is there's somebody in the book called Ingmar Rentzhog. I don't know if you've heard of Ingmar. He has set up the world's largest sustainable pro-planet social media platform called We Don't Have Time.
oh.
And Ingmar, he discovered Greta Thunberg and he gave her her platform. And I interviewed Ingmar for the book.
Huh.
And he loved the conversation we had. It was when I was writing the book, it was very much like these kinds of conversations we're having now. And then I'd write it up. He enjoyed our conversation so much. He said, "Can I put this out on those days it was called Twitter?" He said, "Can I put it out on Twitter?" I said, "Sure." He said, "You don't mind? It's not going to sort of take away from the book?" I said, "Not at all." Do you know that what he put out had just under 1 million views?
Oy.
Because he's another truth sayer, a truthful speaker. And so Ingmar took the book to Davos. He said to me, "Sangeeta, this book, I want to take it to Davos."
What an honor.
And it was before the book came out, so before the release date of the book. And Davos happens in the beginning of January. So my publisher had very little time to get the book there. But I felt that book was destined to be there. It's destined to be in the room. And it was given to sustainability leaders and influencers. And so the book has been given a voice through Ingmar. And if I had the chance to be in the room at Davos, oh my God, I would have, in a heartbeat. But it didn't work that way. But I would have said to people, read the book and then buy another copy of the book and give that copy to somebody so we can make the change that this planet needs.
Well, we're going to have links to your books in the show notes for people because I think I've never read a book on climate change or anything like that. I've watched a lot of documentaries and things like that, but never actually read a book. So you'll be the first book I actually read on the subject. And the reason I'm motivated to read it is now of getting to know you. I don't feel like I'm being sold something that's BS. I'm not having an agenda pushed on me. And that's your way of being in itself has inspired me to take a deeper dive into it from your lens and your education. So I appreciate that about you. And I think we've talked about global leaders and world leaders. I don't know if you have the desire to run for office one day, but I think you would make a great leader and representation of whatever role that you were put in because of the way that you communicate, the way that you deliver messages that are not always really easy to talk about. I think you do a fantastic job, and I think you would open the hearts of a lot of people. So I don't know if that's on your part of your plans or not, but you would be
No, not at all. I have been asked a couple of years
ago. I can see why. I can totally see why.
And I said no. I prefer doing the work I do. I think I'm more powerful this way.
I can also, when I was actually going to run for mayor of a city, I was told the same thing. I would have much more power outside of politics than I would inside of it, and I would be less limited. So I can see that point of view. All right, just a couple more questions. If you could time travel to 2050, what's the first thing you check to see if your legacy made a dent in the climate crisis?
I would check for bees.
Ah,
If bees are thriving, then I know the planet's thriving. Bees are so important for pollinating, for our crops, for our food production, for everything. Everything relies on bees. The birds rely on bees. The bees help plants grow. Yeah, I'd be checking for bees.
that's a really good answer. All right, last question. Actually, I have one more. Hold on. One more besides the last question. What's the quirkiest thing you do at home to help you stay grounded amidst all the global crises?
Oh my God. Do you know? I laugh at the most ridiculous things.
Me too.
And my husband and sometimes I just on my own laughing because I just find the most I don't know. I laugh at myself a lot and that keeps me grounded. I'm no good at my right or my left. Okay. My husband always says, your writing hand, if he's giving me directions, go with your writing hand. I'm not good with my right and my left. And so I I laugh at myself a lot because I just dumb things. I was like, yeah, that keeps me grounded.
I like that. That's a good answer. All right, last one. Gosh, I'm sad. I've had so much fun. I'm no,
Do this again.
I feel energized from this conversation.
Oh,
All
that's
right.
very good.
What's the one piece of advice you'd scream from the rooftops to every human on this planet right now?
Be informed. Know what you're reading. Just be informed. That's the biggest thing you could do for yourself.
Mm.
Not be educated, just be informed. Know your truth. Where's your truth coming from? Know that.
That's sound advice. Well, you've survived 21 actually, you probably got more than 21 questions, but you've survived it and you were amazing. I
I
would
love
like
it.
thank you. I would love to give you the opportunity to have the final word. I would love for you to plug, which is promote anything that you want to promote and say anything you feel led to share. The floor is yours.
I would really love people to buy my book because I also believe this book wrote itself. Do you know, I was just the mechanism for it. So I believe this book has its own energy. I do believe at the end of every chapter there's a simple tip for people to do or not do. But I think this book will just open people's eyes into what an amazing world we live in and that we can all do something. So that would be my plug. And what I've discovered a lot about myself in this conversation with you, and that I've enjoyed the conversation. And I love challenging questions because they make me think, and it makes me reflect on how I see the world. So thank you for allowing me to just see the world a little differently too, and also through your perspective and through your lens. And I think we learn more that way.